And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to a Bookish Moment. Happy 2025. We made it, and I'm thrilled to be with you here today to get bookish with our wonderful guest that we have joining us, Mary Karnes. Mary, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
I am so excited to chat with you today because number one, we are both cozy mystery authors and I just love vibing out about cozy mysteries. And number two, and this might surprise some of our viewers, but when it comes to the subgenre of cozy mystery, wedding cozies are my absolute favorite. I don't know what it is about them because I myself was like, I never dreamed of doing like a big wedding, but I love attending them. And I love just like all of the glitz and glam that they can entail. So I'm really, really excited to chat about your wedding planner mysteries today. And it's going to be a fabulous chat. We've got folks already chiming in on welcoming and saying Happy New Year. We've got Mizan, we've got Regina, we've got Farmhouse Reader, and we've got Susan. Oh, hi, Susan. Welcome back. It's been a while since we've seen you. Glad you could be here. We've got DHB saying good afternoon. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Regina is also chiming in with saying that she loves wedding cozy mysteries, too. So we've got a lot to talk about. Great. JC sends his apologies for not being here for our first 2025 show. Unfortunately, his day job called him into a meeting, and he's off dealing with that fun stuff. So we have to have extra fun in his absence to bring him some cheer. Oh, we've got more folks. David saying greetings, and then Susan, yes, it's been a while, and we're glad that you're here, Susan. So Mary, as a little bit of an introduction for folks who may not be familiar with you and your writing, do you mind sharing a little bit about your journey, your career prior to writing, and then kind of what pushed you in the direction of writing murder mysteries?
You got it. Well, I always wanted to be an author. In fact, my mother submitted a poem of mine to Red Book magazine, which dates me. That's an old-fashioned women's magazine, when I was 6. Oh, and wow. She helped me score my first rejection letter. So,
oh, at 6. Oh.
So then I was an English major in college. I always wanted to be a writer, but I got married and I was a teacher. That was my chosen profession. I got married. We had 4 children, and my husband worked for the Coca-Cola company. Oh. So that in those days, you moved every 3 years. So we started in California. We moved to Utah, then Texas, then Chicago, then Kansas City, then back to Texas, and then finally to New England.
Oh, wow.
So I really didn't get back to teaching because it was just impossible with 4 kids. And so once the kids got out of the house, I started writing again. And then daughter number 2 got engaged to her high school sweetheart, who grew up across the street from us. So I've known my son-in-law since he was 11. And it was my husband who said, let's get a wedding planner when we started planning the process. And I said, absolutely not. I am not wasting good money on that. And he really pushed me. And I just said, no. So I'd never admit it, but the wedding was fine. But you're not going for fine, you're going for fabulous. I think the guests had a wonderful time, but I didn't because I was stressed. So it was a great wedding. It was just stressful for me, and I think stressful for my daughter. So the next year, daughter number 1 got engaged and got married, and we hired a planner. And I realized after that wedding was over how much I loved being a wedding, or I considered myself a wedding planner because I'd done these 2 weddings. So I thought I can do this. So I built a website with the help of GoDaddy, advertised in the Knot, and I was up and running. And I thought, you know what? I think I could write. Let's do these things together. Let's chase the dream of being
Oh,
published
wow.
and write simultaneously building this business. And I did. So that's my story.
That is incredible because I was under just like from our interactions in the community with each other. I've always thought that like you've had like you were wedding planning and then, you had encountered enough people that you're like, man, I could really like figuratively kill off some folks at this point. So like, let me write about those frustrations. But to do those both at the same time, I mean, wow, what a show of strength and perseverance that you have. Like, that's just amazing.
Well, thank you.
And it definitely like, kind of reframes some of my questions for you because you're kind of experiencing Kate and her story. Kate Ludlow, your protagonist, she's come to her hometown. She's building her business, and you really like have that. You can embody those experiences really well because of how your own journey is going. Is that
very true?
Was that always intentional with Kate where like, did you ever like have any ideas about her being this extremely seasoned wedding planner in Eastbury, Connecticut? Or was it something that's like, you know what, like, let's make this feel more organic?
I think I wanted her to be vulnerable and to have some little links in her armor. And so I just chose to have her be unseasoned in the wedding world and to have just had a recent divorce and have to sort of reinvent herself, because I sort of had to reinvent myself. I'd been a stay-at-home mom for so many years. All of a sudden the kids are all out of the house. What do I do now? So in that way, I think Kate's journey mirrors my own.
Wow. That's incredible. And we're definitely going to talk more about your wedding planning experiences, but we do have a question for you from Mizan. She would like to know, what did you teach back when you were teaching? Was it English or?
Great question. I taught kindergarten.
Oh.
And when the kids got to be my children got to be in school, I did substitute teaching. And then I did all grade levels. And I told my husband, I think if I had been teaching 8th through 12th grade, I would be teaching today, because I love that age group.
Oh, wow.
They're such interesting people. And I think I didn't realize it, but elementary wasn't the perfect fit for me. So
I mean, it's based on my friends who are teachers, it's rare that I ever hear somebody say that 8 through 12 are like their people. So that's really special. Mizan is wondering if you could just repeat which grades beyond kindergarten, because the audio had cut out for her.
Oh, kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade.
Nice.
That's what I taught.
Gotcha. And Mizan saying she taught 2nd and 3rd grade. So we've got some.
Oh, nice.
You've got some elementary school teachers in our audience, and probably some high school teachers as well. So what, your story, Mary, about you were so stressed at your second daughter's wedding, which was the first for your family. You were so stressed, and yet you then went into this career and profession where it's like, okay, I'm going to be doing this for other people that aren't my family. Do you feel more pressure at that point? Or I guess, like, how do you balance the, just like the intensity that I would feel as a wedding planner?
I think one reason I embraced going into wedding planning after my daughter's weddings is because I kind of wanted a do-over. I thought I can do this better. And the key to not being stressed is to think of every possible scenario, that if something goes wrong, what's plan B?
Oh, wow.
And when we had our little, you and I, our pre talk
Hmm.
when we checked the sound. I thought Sarah must have been a wedding planner in a different life because you had plan Bs for many of the scenarios of things that could go wrong with audio or powers or so that's what you need to do. And believe it or not, though, you can think of everything that could possibly go wrong and you'll never think of everything.
I know, that's what scares me. And
Yeah.
I appreciate your observation on that fact, because it's something, it's like, I do feel like I've got like plan Z's as much, but you're right. You can never plan for everything. And, we've got David saying that he taught 6th grade, and we have DHB with a question, which I definitely think that it is on top of mind for a lot of folks, is how in the world do you handle bride, groom, momzillas as a wedding planner? Because I've mentioned, like, watched a lot of like wedding shows on TV. It's like sometimes like the personalities you meet, what's your secret for making it through? And do any of those secrets end up in your books?
I think the secrets do, but just by conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think how you deal with those people, and I have to be honest, I've had very few bridezilla, momzillas. I think you have I call myself more of a day event coordinator
Mm-hmm.
because I don't go with the couple for their wedding dress fittings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go to the food tastings. I guide them through the process and I'm there the day.
Gotcha.
But I don't do some of the typical full service
Mm-hmm.
items. So, but I do tell them they have unlimited communication with me. So I think one reason that's for me, I get to learn what their pressure points are,
Mm-hmm.
what matters to them, what stresses them. And then I make provisions for those stressors so they don't have them. So I just sort of nurture them along the way I would my own daughters.
Mm-hmm. That I love that sense of the nurturing standpoint, and really like thinking about your latest book, Save the Fate, which, love the pun title. One of my favorite things about Cozy Mysteries. We have Kate in a very precarious position about all of the relationships in town that she is kind of nourishing at this point, or nurturing at this point, because she's familiar with Eastbury because she grew up there, but she's returned after some time away. And our victim, who, when he is first introduced, is like this all-star hotshot baseball player that's like the hometown hero. And he is a member of like the friend group that Kate grew up in. And then he is found dead, and relationships just begin to fray everywhere. For this being your second book, Mary, how did you, I guess, was the approach that you took, was that always the way that you wanted to kind of bring anybody together and then kind of see, like, let's see if we can tug them apart and see like who holds true? Or was it something that, as you were just exploring this mystery, that this is how everything unfolded for you?
I think the former. I have even written, I think it was the first book, Wedding, Bride, and Doom, where I changed halfway through who the murderer was going to be.
Ooh.
Because it just, you know this, Sarah,
Mm-hmm.
you write and people start, your characters create their own personalities and they do things you'd never expect them to do, which sounds bizarre because they're all in your head,
Mm-hmm.
but they do develop a life of their own.
I think it's, for me, for the longest time, I was really good about sticking to an outline. And, you know, because I had always made, this is who my victim is, this is who the killer is, and this is why. But as I've written more and more, and I think as my characters have really latched on inside my brain, sometimes that deviates. And I'm always really interested when it doesn't work out the way that I expected it to, yet it still works out. And so are you someone that, that, you know, going into a book, like, all of the big plot points? Are you someone that just sits down and, sees what happens? What's your strategy for approaching a new story when you're writing it for the first time?
Well, I have, in what used to be my husband's old office, these giant tablets that I've hung on the wall, and I just start writing from point A, the beginning, all the points that I think I should be making and all the sort of the outline. And then I flesh it out and fill in the blanks. And this book, book 3 that I'm writing now, I have sticky notes with the events, and I'm putting those on a blank tablet this time. Then I can move them around.
Gotcha.
Well, I think she needs to find this clue here at the wedding on Friday versus the wedding on Sunday.
Oh, I like that idea of being able to visually shift things around, because, and like when I was first starting out, I would storyboard on a whiteboard so that I could erase and rewrite things. But since I've kind of moved to the computer so that I have all of my information readily accessible wherever I go. But there is something about that visualization of being able to, those Post-it notes where you can plug and play them, that I think is just, there's nothing like it. And it's a really helpful tool. We have more questions about wedding stories coming from our chat members, Mary. And we have, DHB is asking, do the wedding clients help create your story content, or is that not safe for you to discuss? So DHB is giving you a little bit of an out if you can't talk about whether or not some of your clients have inspired characters, scenarios, or things that have popped up in your series.
That is an awesome question, because someone was chatting with me the other day and they said, it must be so easy for you. You have so much content. And it's actually the opposite, because I have to be so careful to respect my client's privacy and not touch on anything that might resemble them. That being said, I did have a DJ one time pass out at a wedding. And so I don't really feel, I'd never name him. I changed all the scenario, but I didn't feel I really owed him, it happened at a public place. The privacy that, that could happen. A DJ could pass out at a wedding. And what would you do? What would be your backup plan? So, and then I was sharing with you earlier, Sarah, I had a bride who was unethical, first time in 10 years. And I may or may not touch on that in book 3. You'll have to read to find out.
Yes, that's a good teaser. And that's such a great point that I don't, and my family members will just their mission, it seems, whenever they read one of my books, is to figure out who in my books is representative of people that they know.
Right.
And I'm just most of the time, these people are just folks that I have made up. And yes, we take little parts of encounters that we've had or experiences that we've had. If anything, they're people that I want to be, or that I wish that I was more like in my own life. But it's really hard to walk that fine line of
it is
fiction and, taking a little bit from your reality. So do you have, I guess, how do you, when you're creating kind of these scenes, and maybe we can talk a little bit about our wedding that's featured in Save the Fate, which is I love the planning scene, because we have Jack, who is the famous baseball player who's returned home. He's getting married to a local woman, but they need to get married really, really quick. What's the fastest that you've had to put together a wedding or an event for someone in your business?
Wow. I could do it quickly if people were flexible on the day of the week. I think the earliest someone has contacted me has been a month out, but they already had their venue.
Okay.
So they had a lot of their vendors. So I could do it in, 2 to 4 weeks,
Hmm.
as long as the couple was flexible.
Okay, because that's another thing that I love about your series is that you start every chapter with a wedding planning tip. And I imagine that, how many chapters that you've written by now. It's like, do you ever worry, like, am I going to run out of tips before I run out of ideas for murder? But how
Never.
do you have like all of those tips stored away somewhere in like your little, in like some type of wedding planner like guide that you've created for yourself? Or are these just more like intuitive as they kind of come in line with the story?
They're more, I just think, gosh, I'm starting a new chapter. I need a
Mhm.
tip. So I never forget a wedding. I never forget a bride. So I just think, well, let's think about Debbie's wedding today. And I'll think, what happened? What was good? What could have been improved? And I'll think of a tip.
Mhm.
So I just visualize that event and come up with a tip.
That's
And some are
amazing.
obvious. Some are obvious tips, but
Because it's like with your books, not only do you get like a fun mystery, but you also like get a how to plan a wedding, and it's like a two for the price of one, which I just think is so fun and clever, and really speaks to, I think, kind of Kate's role in her community of she's an amateur sleuth. Like, she wants to solve the problems for the people that are important to her. And one thing that I found to be very, very interesting, and I don't want to spoil things too much for folks who haven't read it, but your approach to romance in these books so far has been really interesting for a cozy mystery in a very good way, in a surprising, fresh way. So I'm curious how, I guess, maybe talk a little bit about the role that romance plays in Kate's life and whether or not it's the sole focus or if she has other priorities that she is kind of more engaged with at this point.
well, it's definitely a subplot.
Mm-hmm.
The man that she reunites with at the end of the first book was her high school sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
And she always had a soft spot for him. And they broke up due to a misunderstanding, which is revealed in book number 1. So they do reunite, but he's never been married. She's divorced and has a teen daughter. So they're at different life places, and she's still young enough she could have another child.
Mm-hmm.
And he definitely wants that. So they're a little bit at different places, but
Mm-hmm.
yet they love each other.
I think
So
I think that their story is really I mean, it's just like brings like such like a relatable aspect to Kate in her world, because it just felt, so much of the book felt grounded in reality, especially since you talk about like the post-COVID like wedding crunch thing.
ugh,
Like,
it was crazy.
I thought that was really interesting because I was like, wow, that really makes sense, because like a lot of our friends, they had their weddings kind of postponed, or like weird like Zoom weddings that went on, and like there was just like so much that I guess maybe if you weren't involved in it, you weren't necessarily thinking about it. But like, are you still feeling in like the real world that post-COVID wedding like rush? Or has everybody gotten married that was supposed to get married? Has everything gotten kind of leveled out at this point?
Great question. I think as of 2024 and 2023, probably, the rush, the crunch is over.
Mm-hmm.
But what hasn't changed is during COVID, prices went way up,
Mm-hmm.
especially with food, catering, and they haven't come down. We see that in our everyday life, but it's very obvious in the wedding world. I know daughter number 3 got married in October. So it had been
Mm-hmm.
9 years since daughter number 1 and daughter number 3. And as the mother of the bride, I was floored at how expensive things are.
Oh, wow.
I knew a little bit, but I don't always see my clients' contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how much everything costs really. Um, and it was stunning. So that's what COVID did, is
Gotcha.
really made the prices soar.
Do you think, because you talk about the micro wedding, and do you think that, like, because there was this shift of like, okay, like let's whittle down numbers and all of this stuff. Do you think that that is going to become more of a trend going forward? Or is that something that was just like, we're going to go back to doing things the way that we were doing them before?
I think as long as people can afford it, they're going to have the big splashy weddings. I
Gotcha.
don't think we'll ever go back.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had a couple of the micro weddings, and you think, oh, is it going to feel sort of lonely
Mm-hmm.
or look sparse? It's jubilant.
It
It's
is.
very celebratory. Yeah. So I don't know that, and the bride and groom are more relaxed. They
Mm-hmm.
can talk to each guest versus just hello to maybe some or a hand wave.
Mm-hmm.
So there are definite advantages to the micro wedding.
Nice. And really quickly, because I told you our time together was going to fly by.
You're kidding. Oh my
It's
gosh.
almost time. We've only have 4 minutes left. We have to talk really quickly about Chloe, because we have a lot of fans in our bookish community that love a good furry companion. You want to share who Chloe is and how she is in Kate's life?
Well, I have to tell you a funny story, but I'll put that off for a minute. Chloe's a dachshund, and I got my first dachshund when I was 3 years old.
Oh.
And I have my last one, I think, for a while, because my husband and I like to travel, and we don't really love to kennel him. But
Mm-hmm.
Lucky is my dog now. He's a 14-year-old senior dachshund, a rescue, and I just adore him. He's my only son. So
Is Lucky the inspiration for the Lucky Charm by any chance?
no, he
Okay.
came with the name Lucky, and he
Gotcha.
was 7 when we got him, so we didn't want
Oh,
to
okay.
change his name. But I have a very, very dear friend,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think I've shared this with her, so I hope I will have to share it with her if she's watching. But about 16 years ago, she got a puppy, and she named her puppy Maggie, which is the name of my second daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started my series, I named my dog Hannah, because that was her daughter's name. And then when I did my revisions, I thought, I've got to change that name. I don't want to hurt her. So that's how the dog became Chloe.
I think while I love the name Chloe, I think it's an honor to be named after a dog too. So I think that's a really sweet story. But I hear you about like changing people's names. Like there are some names that, just pop into my head when I'm writing. It's like, oh, that sounds like a fun name. And I remember it was for my first trending topic mystery book that I had sent it to my mom to read so she could see like, hey, this is what your daughter wrote. And she's like, did you know that you went to kindergarten with somebody who is named this name? I was like, oh, I kind of forgot about her. And so I had to go in and ask, was like, can we change the name? Because I didn't want like any type of like, it's like, I doubt this person even remembers who I am at this point, because I too moved around a lot when I was little. But it was just funny. It's like, that's why the name came to me so easily.
Yeah.
The fun things that happened to us during our writing. Mary, this has been so delightful. Thank you so much
I've enjoyed it so much.
It's been such like a cozy, warm chat to kick off our year. For folks who want to keep in touch with you, either on socials, newsletter, what have you, what's the best way for them to stay connected to you?
Well, first of all, Sarah, thank you for hosting me today. I really had a good time.
Good.
You can follow me on Instagram, Mary Karnes Author. My wedding Instagram is Mary P, as in Paul Karnes, Weddings. My author website is Mary Karnes Author. So I'd love to hear from you all.
And for your weddings Instagram, do you post pictures about like the events that you do, or is it more like that behind the scenes type of stuff?
It's the weddings.
Oh, nice.
Pictures of the weddings.
Ooh.
So
I'm gonna have to go like look that up, because I love looking at wedding pictures. I just love weddings so much.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Save the Fate is out now. That is book 2 in the series. Book 3 is coming in August, you said, correct?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Correct.
And would you like to tell folks what the fabulous punny title is?
I would. It's called Unveiled Secrets.
I love it. We will look forward to having that on our bookshelves. And if you have the time, Mary, to come back and talk about Kate's next mystery adventure, would love to have you back here on a Bookish Moment.
Thank you. I would love it.
Perfect. And to our wonderful audience members who joined us for this afternoon, thank you for being here live. We always appreciate having our wonderful audience members talk with us. Regina is piping in with a I have Wedding, Bride, and Doom on my TBR. So that's fabulous. Regina, you're going to love it.
Thank you.
And Susan, thank you so much. Susan saying thank you, Mary, for being here. And thank you to me for being here. So thank you. We love it. Always a fabulous time. We have a bookish hour coming to you this Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Central Time. Our guest is going to be Annie McEwen. We're going to be talking about her Northwoods mystery. So it's going to be another cozy mystery, another cozy evening. Be fabulous fun. So we hope that you'll be able to join us then. But until we connect with each other, everybody, stay bookish. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.